Right, tankers, it's Matt and welcome back to another quick tank review. Today we're going to be looking at the Tier 8 non-turreted Soviet tank destroyer, the SU-101. This thing relies on its camo value and its DPM to try and get some damage done with its huge 2 degrees of gun depression and hopefully staying stealthy and not losing all of your hit point. Right, tankers, the SU-101, one of 2 Tier 8 Russian TDs, and they both don't have a turret this time. Right, so this tank does actually share quite a few attributes with the last tank review I did, the Charioteer. A lot of its stats make it really bad, but there are a few stats that make it good enough to warrant playing and making it not so bad a grind to get to the Tier 9 version. Right, first thing we're going to look at is the armour. 120 at the front, 90 at the sides, 40 at the rear, and as ever, that is mostly lies. The back doors are actually 40. The side armour on the upper superstructure is 90, the angled parts, but below that it drops to 75mm, and that 75mm extends to the front and to the drive wheel. So you see these 2 bits sticking out the front, they're actually thinner from the lower plate and the upper plate. Yeah, so the front armour was meant to be 120, but of course that's lies. The front plates, both of them, are 90mm. They're on a pretty good angle, but still 90mm. It will hold up against some lower tier tanks, but tier 8s, tier 9s and definitely tier 10s will auto aim you and pan you pretty much every time. So what was 120? Well, see this thick plate that's led back behind the gun? That is 120 and led back at a fairly decent angle, and you will be able to bounce lower tiers for that fairly reliably, but not higher tiers. Gun mantlet is pretty thick, it's a big wedge of spaced armour, but be careful, there is one hole for the coax machine gun. You can see just that little hole sticking out at the top there. That is 140mm. It's not very well angled, whereas the rest of the gun mantlet pulls off numbers over 300mm in some areas, apart from that little ring around the base of the gun, which is also a weak spot. But it's a very small target. But every now and again, somebody might get a shot into you through there. Right. Quickly, the rest of the stats then, same old tier 8 problems, 990 hit points, that is nearly 600 less than a Tiger 1, just like the Charioteer. And another thing that's like the Charioteer, speed limit 54 km an hour, and it will get there really quickly. 680 horsepower engine and quite a light machine. This thing does drive like a medium. If it had a turret, it would be amazing, but it doesn't have a turret. Pardon me. Right, view range 380, it's okay. It's on that limit of needing binos, but because the gun arcs are only 7 degrees side to side, I've found I very rarely have binos deployed, but you can see I do run a camo net, and I'll talk about that in my equipment choices in a minute. Right, let's have a look at the grind then. So it's not actually that bad. You start off with the same gun from the SU-100 M1, good little gun. It's the same gun, I think the T54 gets stock, so you have like 175 pen, but you have wicked rate of fire. So if you don't mind using some premium, this is actually a pretty good tank stock. I mean, with nearly 10 rounds a minute, 235 APCR pen, with an aiming time of 1.7 seconds and 0.34, that is actually one of the best stock guns you can get, apart from something like the Foch, which gets its top gun at the start, if you know what I mean. Right, there is this option here to upgrade to one of, I think this is a fully upgraded IS's gun. It's a good idea to do it. You get better gun, better tracks, better radio, so you become slightly more self-sufficient in terms of being able to see on the map where your enemy tanks are. And rate of fire drops, but remember you go from, what was the alpha on that one? 250 to 390 alpha with nearly 8 rounds a minute in a good matchup. If you can get your rounds to hit consistently. I've had some games where I was heavily top tier, and the damage you could do in a few minutes with basically an IS that fires twice as many rounds per minute. Wicked. Apart from fighting tier 9s and tier 10s, and some tier 8s was completely ineffective. Anyway, or you can choose to go straight to here. But if you've been up the heavy tank lines, this upgrade is going to be fairly cheap anyway, but I would suggest doing it just for the laughs. Right, so here you get the fully upgraded gun. It's basically a T-54's gun, nearly 9 rounds a minute. Pen is acceptable. 219 at tier 8, that is pretty good. It's not amazing, it's not crap. With 320 alpha with 100mm. But you do at this point get the nice heat rounds, 330 pen with 320 alpha. This allows you to fight tier 10s easily, although with the rate of fire and the ammo count of this vehicle, I carry 8 heat rounds, but in a tier 8 game I find I have to use the heat rounds for heavily armoured tier 8 heavies, because I get through the ammo so quickly. I would have ended up using them at the end of the game on possibly some lightly skinned TDs. And in a tier 10 game, my 8 rounds of heat disappears in less than a minute, and then I'm stuck with the rest of the game fighting E100s with 219 pen. But anyway, rest of that, aim time's still pretty good and accuracy is still pretty good. Right, so from here you can take the extra engine package. It was a lot of XP for just one module. It did make the tank slightly better, but I always try to fully upgrade all of my tanks to try and get the engineer badges as I go along. But if you're not interested in that, probably you don't really need it. The tank's alright here, and the amount of XP you use to unlock that engine is probably a third or just under a third of the XP to get to the tier 9 version. Anyway, that's enough of that. Crew skills, just have a quick look. I don't have many. You definitely want 6th sense and camo. I recommend clutch braking and brothers in arms after that, and possibly repairs before, because remember you don't have a turret. If you get your tracks taken off, you could be pretty screwed. So it depends, it's up to you which order you want to take clutch braking, repairs and brothers in arms in. Right, so that's enough of that. Let's talk about the equipment choices now. So I went for a medium caliber tank rammer. This tank does live and die by its DPM, so bringing it up is always a good idea. I went for coated optics combined with combat rations with this tank. Because the gun arcs are only 7 degrees per side, I have found I did not have the binos up long enough to warrant having them, but I still run a camo net. And the reason for that is the rare opportunity you do get in a long range position where you can just continually put rounds down the range. You want to stay as stealthy as long as you can to continue doing that. In that situation, binos would help, but it's so rare. I'd rather have the 20% view range with the coated optics and the combat rations rather than the 25% with the binos. And also the camouflage net. If you are up the creek without a paddle and you need to sit in the bush and not fire and stay hidden, the camo net is obviously going to help with that a little bit more. And if you do have a lot more skilled crew than I do, I would recommend all of the sneaky crew skills, green thumbs, muffled shot. All of those things will help you massively here. And onto supplies, like I said, 8 heat rounds for fighting tier 10s. I would bump that up more, but as you can see the round count is pretty low for a tier 8, considering it's 100mm, not like 120 on the T28 prototype or something, and standard consumables, but with combat rations. Right, so that's pretty much it, fellas. Let's get into some gameplay. There's not a huge amount to talk about this thing, apart from the gun depression is appalling. 2 degrees will mean a lot of the positions you think will work because you've used them in other tanks just don't in this thing, and you're going to have to learn a whole nother way of playing it.
We have to take and hold the marked objective. Get to it.
Right, into some action then, tankers. SU-101 on Westfield, and the new Westfield is a lot more enjoyable to play than the old one. And also this map, the eastern side, has become a much more viable way of winning the game than it ever used to be. It kind of used to be the way some people used to go, either just to camp up here on this bridge top, because pushing any further normally resulted in you dying. But now with all the changes up here, I've had a few games lately where our guys who went west got completely ruffle stomped, but us guys who went east managed to hold on, go on to win the game. And also a tank like the SU-101, you need every opportunity you can to get into a stealthy position, but hopefully close enough to do your own spotting like this. And whilst this is going on, I'm not firing at this point because I haven't got enough support to warrant me getting spotted, and I do fire. Anyway, look at that, don't get spotted. Happy days. I'm not even using the bushes properly. So a couple of them pushed into the cap. A bit annoying because they're in cover. Tricky dicky shot there. How did that one go in? Look at that accuracy and the reload. Within a couple of seconds there, that Yag Panther was down to a one shot. amazing reload on this tank, and it's this situation, but just look at my position. A lot of TDs I would only be showing just the gun, but with this thing, unless you can get very lucky with where you are on the map, you pretty much have to expose the entirety of your tank to get the gun facing where you want to point. Never mind, camo value is holding out at the minute. Remember, it's way above average, and with camo, crew skill, and the use of bushes, I'm still remaining pretty stealthy.
Enemy armor is damaged.
Right, .34 accuracy is pretty good. Although with 216 pen, there are going to be some shots at range against things like IS-3s, KV-4s, well, especially KV-4. I do, in a tier 8 game, I do reserve my heat rounds, especially for KV-4s. Anyway, nice blind kill there. This game's going on pretty quick. We've pumped out a decent amount of damage so far, and there we go, get spotted for the first time. Don't know who it was. It probably was that Bulldog and not the IS-3. And we managed to bounce a shot off the front plate there. Very, very lucky. The other guy who was spotted, possibly, dies. Maybe he wasn't spotted, and there we go, gun depression fail, and look at that, that's almost flat ground, so I give up straight away. The amount of times you see people driving tanks like this, they don't give up, and they continue to drive forward until they can get gun depression, and by that time, they've already lost, well, an IS-3 with decent rolls can 2-shot an SU-101, and is a guaranteed 3-shot. Yeah, anyway, another quick kill there, here he comes. Look at that. If I backed up, my gun depression was not even good enough to aim at the ground there. Right, KV-4's pushing in, he takes a hit, but the guy goes down anyway. So I go back to my original position. Right, we're losing on numbers by 2. That Bulldog's annoying. Right, so here they come. The guys that have won the western flank are now pushing over. Right, great hit there on the IS-3 turret. I'm surprised it penned, but it did his ammo racks. If he's got no repair kit, that is him with less reload for time. And he jumps off. Okay, dude, if you were that bothered about getting hit. Right, so he's not going to be a problem for a while. There's that Bulldog again. Be nice to get him taken out, so I take a bit of time. I loaded my shot and I still missed, didn't give it enough lead. The AP rounds on this tank there, the round velocity is pretty good, there's nothing special though. Right, that was a bad shot from me, gave no way near enough lead there. Right, here they come. Right, so here comes the dudes that won the western flank. So KV-4 there, bounce the standard round, load my heat rounds, ideal opportunity to use them. I can pen the KV-4 if he's square on pretty much with 216 pen. But I'm going to get very, very low on ammo in this game, and that's what I was saying about the ammo count. Use your heat rounds when they're going to be most effective, i.e. on the heaviest army. I'm top tier, so it's tier 8 game. The most heavily armoured target in this game is the KV-4, so I use my heat rounds on the KV-4. You may as well use that extra pen when you require it, rather than running out of AP rounds later on in the game and using heat rounds on things like a Chi-Ri, which I'm going to do anyway at this point because it was too short a time for me to change ammo type. Right, it's got one heat round left, T44, put it to good use. He should be a one-shot for me now. Can I squeeze it out? Can I? Oh, didn't roll high enough. Right, so this is what I was saying about this position as well, fellas. The enemy team there could have quite easily won this if they'd been a little bit more cagey and didn't let me put this DPM to work on this hill. They had that side won. Right, so IS-3, watch his gun depression fail. So I run round him, takes my commander out. I put my commander back in because I need to know when I'm spotted, and also you get your brothers in arms when you've got all your crew alive, so that will help. And now I've got this KV-4 with me. He's miles away. So what am I going to do? I need help. I could probably kill the IS-3 just about before he kills me. I maybe should have hung around and just juked it out and went for the kill. Right, I've sped this bit up, fellas. I sit here and wait for my KV4 buddy to come and help me. Although I do get a little bit bored and I start to push my luck just to see where he is. Gotta be around here somewhere. Right, so he's probably a two-shot for me, but why fight fair when you've got a KV4 friend? And it's also at this point, I do it quite a lot. If I've had a really good game, at the end of the game I start to try and rush the situation and try and win it too aggressively. Look at this gun depression fail. Bang it off his side armour, so I drive round him. Come on KV4 buddy. That's it, he puts one in. I know I can take the hit now. And what the hell was that? Oh no, screw up! See what I mean? When I get into this situation, I'm so sort of probably excited about the prospect of winning a match that we probably shouldn't have won. I make big mistakes like that. But anyway, killed the IS-3. He tried to run away. Not a bad game in the SU-101 there. Right, so not much of silver made at all because I had to fire the heat rounds, but if you checked my round count at the end of that game, they were almost all gone. So you may as well use them when you need to. High caliber, mastery 1, and just a tad under 5,000 damage there. Right, like I said earlier, I'm going to leave a link to a Ace Mastery game for you guys to watch if you're interested in what the SU-101 can do. Good little tank. It's very situational. The lack of gun depression will annoy you and frustrate you endlessly, but for these sort of situations where you get long range shots and you can put that gun to work, you can do some serious damage in it, and it's quite surprising. Right, there we go fellas, give it a like if you did, and I will catch you on the next one. See you later.